Maps of Consciousness by Ralph Metzner Ph.D., the classic text on exploring the mind and expanding awareness. This is a text that was originally published in 1971. And I have to say, it does come across as 1971 was just 2 years after the so-called Summer of Love of 1969, when you read the book, you can clearly tell that you're reading the words of a peer, a contemporary of Timothy Leary's, the professor who was at the forefront of experimentation with LSD. This doesn't quite so explicitly go into psychedelics. Instead, he delves into these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to say 5.5 because actualism, I'm not going to call it a tradition, but yes, these 5.5 traditions that really are representations of the human mind, of the human consciousness, and divides the human consciousness up into studyable parts, right? So he starts off with a very interesting overview of the point of studying consciousness and the reason why we are today interested in studying consciousness when that's not been the case, at least in some earlier years. There's certainly been a break in being interested in consciousness, and since the late 60s, that has become interesting once again. And so then he goes chapter by chapter, actually devotes 2 chapters to astrology, chapter by chapter into giving you a history, first of all, of each of these traditions, and then going into some personal experiences, which are always really fun to read. And then he gives you some personal experiences that you can try out, right, towards the end of each chapter. So let's talk a little bit about those. We're right here. Why not talk about the experiential experiments, So there's one of these for each of the chapters except for the first chapter on astrology. So there's just one of these per tradition, should I say, right? Because the part on astrology has it at the end of astrology part 2. And I'm going to say that they feel a little bit like an add-on. They feel a little bit like he felt like he should give people a little something to try, but that he wasn't best placed, or he didn't really have a good idea how to give people an experiential experience through experiment. Wow, on how to just notice the reality, to have the experience of the reality that he's just been talking about during the chapter. I think the main problem is that he's kept these experiential experiments down to, as you can see, about 2.5 pages. And since he's not spending the whole of these 2.5 pages just giving you bullet points, do this, now do that, now do that, what he's doing is pretty much just talking a little bit more about what he's been talking about and giving you an idea of how you could try doing something like this, right? It's just not very precise. And so I would say that it's maybe not super helpful. However, it's nicer to have that than not to have it at all, that's for sure. Let's talk a little bit about his writing style. I think that given the fact that he is a doctor, right, a PhD possessor, I'm going to say that his writing is very accessible, very pleasant to read, very easy to follow. Now, there are occasional points where I was reading about something that I happen to know very well about. In fact, I'm going to say that most of this is going to be rather introductory stuff for most people. If you're interested in any of these traditions, and you know anything about them, you might find some new information, but it's all introductory stuff, right? And some of it might even be a little bit out of date. Nevertheless, I'm going to recommend this very strongly for people who are newly interested in magic and want a primer of the basic, very basic understanding to have, the very basic, what's the word I'm looking for? Just the prerequisite knowledge to be able to start getting what magic is about. Now, you can start practicing magic without any of this knowledge, but if you're interested in a little bit more than, do this spell and find $5 on the floor kind of stuff. If you're actually interested in how magic works, what it's all about, and so on and so forth, then I think this is a really nice place to start, just because of how approachable it is and how broad it is. I made a video some years ago, I guess, about what magic actually is, and I suggested that Tantra may in fact be the key to understanding what the magical lodges of the early 20th century, late 19th, early 20th centuries were in fact doing. And my hunch, my guess was that they were reproducing what they had discovered in Indian Tantra and trying to reproduce it for a Western public. So yeah, this very much confirms that, and I'm really amazed, surprised that we've the author Ralph Metzner and I have clearly come to the same conclusions about how a lot of this works. So it's nice to be reading somebody who's clearly got similar ideas to mine. And I think that's probably reasonable, given that my own thoughts on this are heavily influenced by 1950s to 1970s thinkers, right, and specifically thinkers on the topic of human consciousness, and that's exactly what this is, Okay, there's this final chapter. Let's talk a bit about it, right? This the chapter on actualism. So actualism is, I'm going to say it's definitely of its time. It's a philosophy that proposes that only the present moment exists, and that's great if you're living in a community in 1969, but not necessarily great if you're having to make your way through a weird post. What am I going to call it? Just in the 21st century, basically, with the internet, and where actually living in the moment is not something that is compatible with modern life, unfortunately, right? If you want to stay alive, it's very difficult to live by the axiom that only now exists. Well, it's possible to live that way, but not for very long, should I say, right? Okay. I'm going to say, what else am I going to say about any of this? I'm going to say that if any of these traditions are new to you, or if you understand that they're important to magic, but you're not quite sure how, then this is a book for you. If you're, as I was saying earlier, if you're interested in the idea of magic and you want to kind of get into it, this is a great primer, a great way of making sure that once you're actually studying the magic, you understand why you're studying it in that way, and why certain effects work the way they do. I'm going to say that this is interesting if you're interested in psychedelic philosophy, certainly, and also if you're looking for personal relations of of real life experiences of all of these just in action, working in real life. And I think that's going to be about it for my review for Maps of Consciousness. It's probably not going to stay in my library, but I think that I am going to be recommending it to certain people, right? So that's I think that's reasonable. So I don't need this book. I feel like there's nothing in here that I don't know or that I haven't learned from the first read through. But I think that many people approaching me saying, hey, so what's all this magic thing? This might be one of the books that I recommend, along with, say, Robert Anton Wilson's Quantum Psychology and books like that, right? Some books that'll get you up to 0.0, right? To the point where you can actually start studying magic and it'll all make sense. There we go. That's my review of Maps of Consciousness. I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to leave a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to support the channel if you're in a situation in which you can support the channel. I really appreciate every single member who has joined the YouTube memberships and the Patreon. Thank you so much for your support. And if you're in a situation in which you can support the channel and help me to get more books for reviewing, then please do consider joining. Thanks very much for watching. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and see you very soon with another video. Take care. Bye bye.